I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I have Councilman Anton Keller will lead us in invocation. Go ahead, sir.
Let us pray. Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank Thee for this opportunity that we have to gather together in this council meeting for the City of North Pole. We ask Thee to please help us that we may be able to understand Thy will for this area and for the city, and also have the courage to go forth and do Thy will. We ask Thee to please bless those who are affected through sickness that keep going around. Please bless the citizens that are not doing so well. Please bless them with comfort and peace. Please bless those who are struggling with all the amount of snow that's melting, that they may be able to receive the help that they need. And we ask you to please bless those who are first responders within the city and within the borough and the nation, that they may be kept safe and be able to receive the inspiration and guidance that they need to be kept safe. And we say these things in the name of our Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. We'll go to an action item now. Action item number 4, you'll find on pages 1 and 2 for an approval of the agenda.
Move to approve the agenda, Mayor.
Second, Jacobson.
Okay, there's a motion by Claus, seconded by Jacobson to approve the agenda.
Also, Mayor, move to amend the agenda by consenting all items under new business.
Okay, items A, B, C, D, and E. Do I have a second?
Second, Welch.
Okay, so Claus has made the amendment and Welch's second amendment to items A, B, C, D, and E to be a consent agenda. Madam Clerk, would you call that question?
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Now, does anyone wish to change their vote? I see no changes. Seeing none. Now, on the original question, call the question on the agenda now as amended, please, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Does anyone wish to change that? I see none. Thank you. The agenda is now passed. Item 5, an action item, approval of the minutes from the April 4th, 2022 meeting. You'll find it on pages 3 through 9.
Move to approve the minutes.
There's a
Second,
move.
Jacobson.
Okay, motion by Claus, seconded by Jacobson. Are there any corrections to the minutes needed? Hearing or seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Keller,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Kramer,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Claus,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. It looks like no one's going to change their vote on that. So thank you, Madam Clerk. The minutes are now part of history. They are approved. Item 6, communications from the mayor. We'll start out with the student of the month. So I'm going to make sure she's here first. Kylie Lambries, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, there you go. And Kylie, do you have your parents with you?
Yeah, my mom's right here. Hi.
Okay. And is Scott with us too? No. Just checking.
I don't know. Let me see.
I don't see him.
I don't see him.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. So Kylie, are you ready to be spoken about here?
Yeah.
Thank you. This is from the office of the mayor, the city of North Pole, a proclamation. Whereas Kylie Lambries is a senior at North Pole High School and is the daughter of Scott and Cindy Lambries. And whereas Kylie is a member of the student council National Honor Society, Engineering Club, and Sources of Strength. Whereas Kylie spends her time fundraising for the senior class, the choir, and various other charities, such as the Red Cross and suicide prevention, as well as volunteering with the Lions Club. And whereas Kylie has been the State of Alaska Supreme Court Student of the Week, a Student of the Year in 2019, 2020, and 2021, as well as the Fairbanks Daily News Miner Student of the Month. Whereas the City of North Pole desires to recognize their outstanding students in this community. Therefore, I, Michael W. Welch, Mayor of the City of North Pole, do hereby proclaim that Kylie Lambrese is the North Pole City Council High School Student of the Month for April 2022. Congratulations, Kylie. Now, you have to answer some questions. Everyone clap. So how successful have you been with the fundraising there?
Fairly good. I mean, we didn't get a fundraise last year, so we're pretty much all the money that we have for graduation and other senior activities is coming from what we've raised this year.
Okay. And what Sources of Strength? What is that about?
So Sources of Strength is also a suicide prevention club. It's combined with Signs of Suicide, so it's just SOS both.
Okay.
I joined it. Yeah.
So that's quite a bit. So are you leaning towards being an engineer?
I'm planning on going into computer science, but
Okay.
engineering is actually quite a related field, so I might take a couple classes in engineering just to keep up with it.
Where do you think you'll go to school there?
I'm going to UAF in the fall.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Well, congratulations. And Mom, what do you have to say about this?
Oh, thank you. We are very proud of her for all her accomplishment. She worked real hard for everything she does.
Well, thanks for supporting her and helping her learn the things she needs to know to get through. So we're hoping that you don't forget us once you go up to UAF. You're going to still stay here in North Pole?
Yeah, I'm going to commute.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you
And
so
take
much.
good care. And I hope you enjoy your graduation next month.
Yep.
Mine's coming up on 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
May 10th will be 50 years. That's a long time. So I'm dating how old I am. Santa Claus, you never did graduate, did you?
Yep, I did. I graduated.
You did, see? Okay, there you go. Thank you very much again. You may stay with us if you please. It's up to you. If you want to stay with us, it will get a little long in the tooth here. So we're going to continue on from communications from the mayor. So as y'all know, I had a pretty busy, hectic schedule. And last week, I left here on the 10th, on Sunday, the 10th of April, to get to Anchorage. And we had a huge infrastructure, what we call the BIL, the bipartisan infrastructure law that I had to go through. There were more than 1,000 people at the Denina Center. As a matter of fact, there were not enough chairs. Some people sat on the floor, some people sat against the wall. It was hosted by different groups, including U.S. Senator Murkowski, Governor Dunleavy, and the Alaska Municipal League. And that was just day one. And in day one, we covered general obligation bonds. We covered all the different grants, all the different funding sources that we can go to as we try to figure out what our funding possibilities are for the needs of each of our cities. And I can tell you, with more than 1,000 people there, I can't imagine if there was a community that was not represented there. It was hugely attended. It was an all-day affair too, as you can imagine. So the doors opened at 10 in the morning, and I think we got to go home about 5:30 that day, maybe. That was a pretty long deal. Day 2 was not 1,000 people, but there's still more than 600, but at least everybody got a chair. But we're not up in the theater, we're on the floor, and we were broken out first by our geographic region and then by our interest. So you had an A, a B, or C room, and I chose the morning to be in the A room, and I did water and sewer. So I had someone with Army Corps of Engineers and everybody from the interior region that sat at our table. You'd be surprised. I even had maybe Jeff, you can help me remember the engineer from Fairbanks with the water system there. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Bob Pristash, Robert Pristash.
Robert Pristash was at my table, and so was the Army Corps of Engineers, and someone else was there at the table. And it was surprising that they had to capture with some degree of accuracy everything we were talking about. So what I talked about, what was happening with our current water pipe and the concerns that I have about that, and they were giving me clues as to where we could probably get money to do that. In the afternoon, I decided, and oh, by the way, I went with Brent Sheets. Brent Sheets is on the synthetic gasification study with me. So he did energy and power. And, you know, there were other avenues we could have gone to, but I wanted to concentrate on getting where we get the most bang for the buck. So I could have gone to broadband, I could have gone to housing and things like that, but I stuck with what I knew I needed. But then I went over to the afternoon to workforce development. Even Sean Parnell was there for that, by the way. And that was quite a significant thing to see how that turned out. So we're looking at everything that has to do with the workforce. And so even for getting contractors up here to build housing is very difficult. Supply chain is very difficult. So that was not as long a day, but it started at 9 in the morning instead of 10. And we got out about 5. And while I was there, I got to meet one of the undersecretaries of the Department of Energy, Kate Gordon. So more than likely, if I'm physically able to go back to DC in June or July, I'll be meeting with her when I go to the Department of Energy, because we're trying to get a push for our big project that we're working on that has till May 31st to be turned in. So that was a pretty big day. I got back home. But before I could get back home, I had several calls about people's businesses and things flooding. So I had to deal with HC contractors and with Cody Logie, our public works supervisor, my absence, to try to make sure that these things were taken care of. And so I got state DOT out here after about 8:30 at night before I got to town. They were trying to open the culvert underneath the highway over by the pagoda. By the time I got here, the sun hadn't set and they were across the street at McDonald's. They finally got the culvert open, and it's not easy. You have to go to various places to try to push the ice and snow through with a boiler, but they did get on top of it finally, okay? We were having a robust discussion about HC before the meeting of the whole, and I will say that we will be in discussion with them. They decided to finish before 1 o'clock on Saturday. And as you can see, we did get a lot of snow up. The question is, how much did we really get up? How much was left behind? And that's going to be one of the most costly things that was not budgeted. If it goes to the full amount, it'd be $630,000. But I am of the opinion that it might be about 70,000 cubic yards, which would be about $420,000. But we'll see how that works out. On the horizon, trying to remember what all's coming down. You do know that on this past Friday, the 2 final F-35s came home. So all 54 F-35s are here. And the 3,500 airmen and family members, and that's just the beginning. It's going to be a lot more than that. In the world of our human resources, not human resources, our human resources, I'm going to let her discuss that, Ellie, when the time comes, but we did interview 2 people, fully interviewed them, And I'll let her discuss how that went and what we're going to do about it. But it looks like the second level interview for one of those who is local will be this upcoming Thursday with both Cody and Paul Trissel, and hopefully with me at the end of the day, so that we could take a good look at one person up here. And I'll tell you his name. Jeff, you may know him. He's out at Fort Wainwright. And his name, he goes by Daniel or Danny. His name is John Daniel Wallace. And he is under the garrison commander there and has been so for 8 years now. And he does a lot of the planning for so he does a lot with public works and utility, building, all that. So he's the full meal deal. So we'll see how that goes with our second level interviews with him. We also have a person named Burl Eddy down in Puget Sound with the Transit Authority. And he wants to come back up here. He's got family in Fairbanks. He's been here before, but more as a tourist and not as a resident. So we're going to give both of those guys a good look. Hopefully we'll have somebody on somewhere between the 23rd of May, but no later than the 31st of May, the day after Memorial Day. So that's pretty much where we're at with that. And we're making progress with Tyler. And so while I have the floor, I'll just do that instead of Tricia. Tricia is home busily getting together for the audit. She has an imposed deadline of this Friday, April 22nd at 3 p.m. I may need to have to engage with our auditor and extend that out a few days, but I'm hoping we don't have to. But we will if we have to. Tyler, by the way, is eating up no less than 24 hours every week between her and Michelle and other people that are learning the different. For example, Melanie Swanson is learning the accounts receivable portion of that software program. It's very difficult, it's very robust, it's complex, and they have to get their hands on it to learn it. So that's pretty much that. And sometimes they're spending as much as 35 hours a week, 7-hour days, sometimes 5 days a week. You know, it doesn't give you a lot of time. So I instructed our HR today to go out and just for a period not to exceed 120 days to hire someone who knows Tyler that can come in and help with some of the periphery things for data entry, just to get the data entry up. Not to exceed 120 days, not full time, not to exceed 24 hours a week, or not to exceed 48 hours of pay period. So pretty much that's cut and dry. We're going to try to boost that up so that it goes through the entire summer and we get caught up to date, because it's very hard on Tricia and Michelle to stay with their head above water with all the stuff that Tyler's throwing at them. So with that in mind, I will ask you to keep in mind one thing, and I don't even know if you've received an invitation yet, but on May 13th, that's Friday the 13th, they want to have a celebration at the 354th Wing at the Big Thunderdome. I believe that's where they're going to do it at 3 p.m. to celebrate the fullness of the 354th Wing. So if you guys want an invitation, please let me know so I can make sure that base protocol sends you an invitation that you can come there and see that on Friday the 13th. And I don't think I've forgotten anything at this juncture. So I'll stand ready for any questions you may have of the mayor under item 7. Seeing none, I'm now going to go to department heads. So we'll go to Chief Heineken, if you're with us, Chad.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So from the fire department, last Friday afternoon, we actually did have a structure fire here inside the city of North Pole. The house at the corner of Tanana Drive and Kenai Way. We were called to a possible fire there, and when our units got on scene, they did find an active fire that had started from the exterior of the building and worked up the vinyl siding and gotten into the attic. And there was a significant fire involvement in the attic system of this house. A walker by had actually noticed it and was able to notify the occupants that were inside of it that had no idea their house was burning above them, and able to get them to evacuate into the yard. So yeah, our crew showed up, did a fine job. To put, ended up having to really get inside and pull ceilings. The roof type structure didn't have the normal gable end vents that we would usually use for an attic fire for access. So they did a great job, got in, pulled some ceilings from inside of the actual structure to make access into the attic space that had heavy fire involvement at the time. So they made a really good stop, saving most of the interior property, of a homeowner. If you think about your own home and what you have valuable in your house, that's one of the biggest things that we try to save once we have everybody out of the house. So crews did a great job there. We did have our normal mutual aid partners come help with this fire. So North Star Volunteer Fire Department, Eielson Fire Department were on scene with us. And we did have an engine from Fort Wainwright coming in. When we got a handle on the fire, we were able to cancel them before they arrived. So all in all, no fire is a good fire, but it was a success in the end. Nobody was hurt, and it's mostly confined to just building property damage. So the next thing I have is, as you all know, last week I was down in Appleton. Finally made it down there after some airline problems, and did the final pre-build on this new fire truck we ordered back in August. So it's finally this week gonna hit the factory floor. They're gonna start actually putting this thing together over the next 8 months. And we'll actually get weekly development updates where they'll send us pictures, is what they're telling us, of where this apparatus is over the next 8 months in its process. It's quite impressive. I did send a video link out earlier this year. I don't know if everybody had received that or viewed it. But it's actually a really neat video that shows the Pierce factory in the process of building these fire apparatus from the ground up. It literally goes from raw steel there on the ground to the fire truck at that plant. So pretty impressive to see. So I encourage you to check that video out. And if you haven't got a link to it, let me know. I can email you the link. Last month, we did have one firefighter resign, and that did open up a position, and we used our current firefighter list from the last hiring process we did. So we still had eligible candidates on the list, and we offered a position to Jared Snodgrass, who will start next Monday, the 25th, is his first day on shift. We look forward to Jared joining our team. He comes to us from Chena Gulfstream Fire Department from the other side of town, and comes with really, really high regard from their personnel there. They say he's really a good hand. So we're glad to have Jared on board, and look forward to getting to know him a little bit better. And the last thing I have is I just wanted a big thanks to Chief Dutra for all the work and help he's done to get that security system and door lock system for the fire department in place. He's done a lot of work, and it's really going to benefit the fire department, and we are very grateful for his help. And that's all I have tonight. I can answer any questions.
Yes, Chief, I'm going to ask you something. Now that you have this mutual admiration for Chief Dutra, when the 4th of July comes along, are you want to do the gun and hoses baseball game about, your fire department versus the police department baseball game?
We're always up for good competition. So yeah, we could always put something together.
Yeah. So am I supposed to take who's going to win that? Can we lay anything down on that?
Yeah, I don't know what we have for ball players in the community. We usually do the guns and hoses hockey game, and that just happened last month. So yeah, we'll have to look and see if there's any ball players around.
Well, what you going to put up for your department if you lose?
Yeah, we'll talk with Chief Dutra and maybe work something out.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. So questions for Chief Heineken, please.
Hi, one Chief. This is Councilman Keller. I was just kind of curious if there's a way that we could contact the citizen that actually called in that fire and knocked on the door to see if we could do some sort of like a thank you. It's not every day someone goes and knocks on a neighbor.
Bringing that up. And actually, I've tried to get the word on the street to try to find who this person is, because by the time we got there, they had left. They were there when we first arrived, but by the time things slowed down enough to try to identify who it was a young man, is what we were told, possibly a teenager. And yeah, they were gone by the time we really tried to identify who that person was. So we actively are looking for that person now. So if we do find them, I absolutely would encourage the city to do something to recognize this individual if we can find who it was.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Chief.
Anyone else for the chief?
I'll put it out on the, on a couple of the websites that I belong to here on Facebook and stuff. We should be able to find out who did that. Somebody knows something. We can find people who rob places. Well, I'm sure we can find that. Just a quick thank you for the crew over there that were doing testing this weekend there. They were very professional. Thank you.
You're welcome.
On Wednesday, I should say. It was on Wednesday. Yeah, they did very well.
Chief, when are you going to have your open house in May?
Yeah, our open house is scheduled for May 21st. It'll run from probably 10 to 3 p.m., 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And Lieutenant Beckley is heading that up. And yep, she's already got a lot of good stuff in store and really planning a good event. We haven't, this is the first one in 2 years because of COVID. So we're excited to get the doors back open and get the public back into the building.
Okay. And are you still pretty much set in your department? Are they back using the annex for the third Thursday of each month for our public health clinics?
Yes, they sure are. Yeah, they're doing the shot clinics every Thursday. Starts at 2 and goes into the evening. So yeah, if anybody is looking to get current on their shots, including COVID vaccinations, they do them all.
Okay. And finally, I'll ask you how you set up for your rapid COVID test with Q. How's that set up? Is it still running pretty good?
Yep, still running good. It is significantly slowed down, so we're not doing a lot of tests. So we still have plenty in stock. And if anybody is is feeling ill, and we're ready and able.
Can everyone hear Chief okay? Thank you. All right, Chief. I'm just keeping track of, or trying my best to keep track of COVID, and they're always forecasting what happens in the deep south and then how it filtrates back up here. I don't know how it's going to be, but I know it's easy for us to have those things expire on us. So try to keep me abreast of that. And one last thing, and this is for all the directors that are listening. You're used to sending out a paper form for me to approve your leave. I want you to now know that you can do that on Tyler, and it is going to be an imperative. You shall do it on Tyler. But I will give you this caveat. When you put it into Tyler, and I'll approve it on Tyler, then you don't have to go and put it in your day-to-day thing. Like a lot of you will do that before you take off. You'll write it down and submit it in advance. You don't have to, because you know what it'll do? It'll charge you twice. And when it charges you twice, then poor Michelle or Tricia have to go in and back it out. So when you put it in as a leave request, you're actually saying, mark me down for these days. So be sure what days you're asking for. Know that we can always go back and change anything anyhow, especially if you have to cancel a leave. But don't try to put it down again as a day-to-day submission for payroll reasons, because it's already going to be in there. Okay. Thank you, Chief Heineken. We'll move on next to our department head. Let's go to Ellie. Ellie.
Sorry, just a little slow on the unmute. So like the mayor pretty much covered, we did interviews for the director of city services. We had some good candidates on that on Thursday, and have something set up for this coming Thursday with Cody and Paul. I'm working through the employee manual that was started to try and finish that out. I've been going back and forth with Steve and Chad since it looked like they had some stuff in there and they were working on it the closest. And just getting new employees set up for Chief Heineken and working on everything around there. That's pretty much all I got for you right now.
Thank you. And just for the council's sake to know, Ellie's making really good progress here. And I would not have left to go out of town if I did not think that she would hold down this office and do the city fine. And she did a fine job in my absence. So I'm very, very happy to know that she did that. And she stayed in touch with me, and she's a real trooper. So I think we should be happy we have her on board. She'll be a great asset to the city. She's being baptized by fire, by the way. So it's the best way I know for her to learn this, you know. So any questions for Ella? I don't see any at this time. Thank you, Ellie. Oh, so that leaves Chief Dutra.
Hello, good evening, Council. I don't have a whole lot for tonight, just a few things I sent you earlier, but I did promise you the stats from last month. They're in front of you, and it seems that there's a slight dip in the stats from last time. I told you I'd look into it. So we had some good conversations on what likely occurred here. It looks like there was, officers on leave. There was bad weather, not a lot of people out on the roads, and maybe some extra motivation. Make sure folks are paying attention to the things that need to be paying attention to. And I think the message got across, and the numbers increased significantly. So we're glad about that. There's not a lot of major increases in crimes. If you notice year over year, month to month, that it was a significant decrease in larcenies. From last year, we had 11. This year we had 2. There was not a lot to talk about really with these stats. There's pretty low numbers. It's kind of nice to see that our downward crime trend is continuing, so that's always good, or it's at least holding steady at a low numbers. So I like to see that. We are planning for the police memorial on the 13th, so make sure you mark your schedule. 11 o'clock on the 13th. We're still lining up speakers and name readers and all the other things that go along with those ceremonies. Are quite extensive and take up a lot of time. So as the mayor knows, it's quite a heavy lift to make sure we pull this off. So we're
What
working hard
time
on
in the
that.
morning, Chief?
It's at 11 o'clock on the 13th.
That's it's also on a Friday, the same.
Yes, sir.
Same day, yeah.
And the drug take back for the annual DEA drug take back is on the 30th between 10 and 2. Spread the word. If anybody has any excess drugs or anything laying around the house they want to get rid of, we'll take them into the station. I could bring them in, drop them off. But just as a note that the ACOP board, if those who aren't familiar with what ACOP stands for, that's the Alaska Association of Chiefs of Police. The board of directors drafted a letter in support of our interior training facility. I made a presentation to the board. They acknowledged that it's the significant need for the interior, and they were surprised that we don't have anywhere to shoot and nowhere to drive, and they were quite surprised. So they threw their support behind it. We sent that letter of support to the governor and the legislators. A couple more things I did not have on my notes I wanted to add. The Chino Lakes contract I've been working on a lot with the feds, and we've sent a quote to them for the next 3 years of that contract. We're hoping that will come through and be ready for your approval at the next meeting, which would mean a slight delay in the start of the contract because they didn't get us this bid request until just last week. So kind of put us on a crunch. So the best that we can do is start this contract on the May 3rd. But that's if the council obviously approves it and it gets signed by the mayor. We did have somewhat of a car fire in one of our units. About a 6-year-old car had a LED light that had a bad power lead on it, and it, instead of blowing the fuse, it decided to catch on fire and burnt a hole in the back bumper. And it's great that we have video in the garage because we got to see the whole thing transpire and the smoke and the officers acted quickly and got the car outside and used the fire extinguisher and put out the little bit of a fire that we had there. The car wasn't damaged too bad, just like I said, a hole in the bumper, and we're getting the light replaced. So the door replacement for the new bay and the new addition will start Monday next week, and should hopefully be finished up by the end of the week. We're hoping to get that new door that, for those who aren't familiar, that door that was installed there was an 8-foot door. It should have been a 10-foot door. It was missed by everybody involved in the design and build, and so we're having to go back and repair that or make a change and make that door larger. So, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to ask you some questions, specifically about our relationship with Stanton. I saw what Rod Stanton replied, and I think he's pretty conciliatory about maybe that things were not the way they were supposed to be in relation to how deep they put their things in the sewer line and not going 4 feet deep and running it right through the manhole. And God forbid, they feel like somebody stepped out of line. We won't name that person that works for the city, but they maybe did something on a handshake without going through you. Am I correct?
It wasn't that. Yeah, they did not follow the proper procedures. Yeah.
Say again, Chief.
Yes, they did not. They did not follow the proper procedures. I think kind of was a group of them that made a decision that did not come through me or the engineers, and we all have agreed that that's probably where it went wrong.
Okay. Well, I think that you and I and him and maybe when my new director of city services comes on, whoever that may be, that we go through that because I do not want to see that ever happen again in this city. And not only that, but it comes to me that somebody will be asking in the Housing Authority Task Force, how come right now in the middle of all this, why are we changing our water and sewer standards? It says we're not changing anything and we're not right in the middle of doing it. We started to do it when that came up. Didn't that come up as an issue the latter part of November?
Yes.
That's right. And so I sat down and looked at our standards that were more than 15 years old, and some of them referenced back to nomenclature that was from the 60s and 70s. And I asked the director at the time, Bill Butler, why are we still dealing with this? Is it unclear? Is it too verbose? Is it too exaggerated? Is it too whatever? And is it too expensive at the same time? So my wanting to change those standards is to make a clearer standard, a more appropriate standard to the year 2022, so that this is not confusing, because I had a hard time going through it. It's pretty thick. And so that's why we engaged with Stan Tech to go through that for us. So we are actually changing, not for the sake of change, but for the sake of growth. We are trying to grow a better model for people who want to build here. This is what we as a city require. When you build, this is what we need for water and sewer. And I can imagine we may do the same thing in our building department, even though I haven't asked for that yet. So anyone have a question for Chief Dutra? Chief, what do you think about the Guns and Hoses game?
Sounds interesting. We'll just have to see what sort of folks we have available for that.
You want to start it at 6 in the morning? It'll be daylight, because I know you're getting on a plane later that night to go out of town, right?
Yeah. The fire department could get started at 6 in the morning. Make sure they have the field prepped and all the condiments and drinks and water and food ready for us. That'd be great.
Okay. Well, let's stay in touch with that, because I have some people in the citizenry that are asking about this. And do you have any problem with doing that on up at the Grange later on that day? Any problems, with a color run with traffic control? I was doing a color run probably near the middle school, starting at the middle school, not the elementary or the high school, but the middle school, because it's the closest to the Grange.
Yeah, just give me times and the route, and we can figure out what we need to do.
Well, if you have the baseball game at 6 o'clock and the fire department beats you by 6:55, I think we could start the color run at 7 o'clock, right?
I'm just saying it's a pretty man-intensive, labor-intensive to be going all day with two different parades and all the other things going on during that day.
That's in lieu of the parade, is to have a big bash down at the Grange.
Yeah, I haven't heard much of anything about what's going on, so I
know we're trying
did not know that.
Together. We're trying to put it together, so I'm just giving you a little heads up to get some feedback from the chief. Okay,
we'll do whatever we can to help out. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief. And we might ask you. Remember who you got the Midway from back a couple years ago before the COVID. Remember those days when we did
Yes,
it
sir.
at the high school?
Yeah.
Is that company still intact, Chief?
I'd have to check.
Okay, well, let me know. So next, no questions for Chief Dutra? Nobody wants to ask him to play baseball at 6 in the morning. Okay. Chief Heineken, Chad, you don't have to worry about them. You were only going to have to play the midnight shift anyhow. So now we're going to move on to the borough representative, Miss Councilwoman Welch.
That is, if I can get myself unmuted here. So I attended the borough meeting via Zoom this time here on the 14th. There was a lot, to start out with, a lot of public testimony, and it was all related to the school district borough and the borough's amount of money that they are going to give to the school district. One of the things that apparently has come up is that they want to cut music in the elementary school. So what, fourth, fifth, sixth grade, and up to maybe even into middle school. And there were people as far as from state of Washington that was there, testifying to the fact of please do not cut that because it's so important. And I know that probably that Mr. Jacobson can agree with that even for something like math, it's very important that we do not cut, music because it so develops children at that age and stuff like that. So that was the main thing about their testimony from the citizens. Mayor Ward then gave his report and was saying that they were still needing lifeguards, and the fact that
What's the matter?
I don't know, I'm hearing stuff here so all of a sudden. Okay, sorry. He was talking about that we still need lifeguards to be able to have the pools running full time. There were some people who were complaining about the fact that they were not able to go to the pool. Right now, Mary Sy is down, and at the same time as they're taking care of some of the stuff and they don't have enough lifeguards, they're also resurfacing the hot tubs so that the people can enjoy them when it's that time. Hold on just a sec. I'm sorry. That's my puppy that's whining out there in the hallway. The senior day is coming up real soon. More information on their website down there. What else did he come up with? Oh, yes, he did say that they have 5 lifeguards that are in pipeline being trained. So those who want to go swimming, fear not, eventually they will have more. Some of the ordinances that they were working on, they were working hard on figuring out what they were going to do with the telecommunication, the rules for that. And eventually they came up with a lot of different things they changed. But right now you can still attend the meeting via Zoom, and also for the assembly, you can actually count as somebody who is to help make quorum for that, because that was an issue with it. The only one that they had some issues with were the ones that are quasi, like for example, trying to remember which one it is, quasi judicial in nature of those, and they had to say that there had to at least be a quorum present at the facility, but then the other people could still participate and they could still do that, but they had to have physically present people in the room, but the rest could actually be via Zoom or something like that. Then some service area stuff that they took care of. What else was there? Sorry about that. They also tried to make sure that they were trying to rescind some stuff they had done last time around for sunsetting all this stuff with whether you can attend via Zoom or not. And they took care of that so that it's now all is under one, and then you can actually attend, and you can also testify via Zoom. At least for now, you can, even if there's not a emergency declaration at this point. They also set the minimum amount of money that they were going to give to the schools during the fiscal 22-23. Even though they didn't specifically say what the amount was, it was simply saying that we are going to give you at least this much. And they were trying to do an amendment for it to move it up even higher. But they said, no, there's no reason to do that because this is a minimum and we haven't seen their budget yet, which they will see for the next 2 meetings are going to be budget stuff. So they're going to really be digging into that part. There was one more thing that was important. They wanted to have a resolution in support of the microreactor, the pilot projects that are going on in the military at Eielson. That passed. And then they had a resolution for honoring the memory of Congressman Don Young. The suggestion was to begin with that they would rename the Fairbanks Airport the Don Young International Airport, but they took that out, just saying, yes, we're definitely want to honor him because for one, it's not for us in the local area to decide what we want to name an airport. This is actually a state thing. The last thing they were doing was they had to approve about $1 million worth of money for premium pay for essential worker in borough-wide. And it's a special program that you actually have to apply for. Employers, they must be working with inside the borough. They must be in good standing with the state, like business licensing. Your eligible workers must be receiving hourly wages between $10.34 and $25 an hour. And you had to earn less than $1,000 a week. And they have a whole list of there's about 10 lines worth of things in the ordinance that actually talk about the eligible workers. They can get up to 2 hours per eligible workers for a maximum of 1,800 hours. And you had to have been employed between March the 3rd to December 31st of 21. One of the things is that your company has to pay you up front and then they get reimbursed. It's a reimbursable grant. So they have to see what you as an employer spent on your extra important people. And so you had to pay it first before you do that. You have to put in an application for it. And you can go on to the Fairbanks northstarborough.gov and look up premium pay. And once you have applied for it, whoever comes first showing that you have paid your workers will be reimbursed that. And there's a finite amount of money. So if you have people you have paid out there, please go on to the borough and check to see what, whether your business is eligible and your workers are eligible. One thing that they put into that was it was brought up that there could be folks out there who are on a very specific income. And if all of a sudden they got $2 more or $1.50 more an hour, that it could bump them out of, say, special income housing or offer specific, bump them off of the Medicaid, Medicare rolls. So therefore, all of a sudden, so they made sure that in the ordinance was that as a part of the application, the employer would have to ascertain if that person actually wanted the extra money. That's interesting one, but it did go through. That was a concern of a lot of people. There might be people out there that are, for example, have health care, and if they earned another $1,000 over that period, it could bump them out of that. So thereby unintended consequences would be they would also have to pay more for healthcare, or they would be booted out of a housing that they otherwise no longer would qualify for. So it was pretty interesting meeting. So thank you.
Any questions for the borough rep? Thank you, Mrs. Welch. Councilwoman Welch, I see no questions for you. What are they intending to pay the borough? How much are they budgeting for that? Paying that?
They had $1 million set aside for it under that program. So it was pretty interesting. If I remember how much money they all together, it was showing on here on this thing here how much they actually had all together. They had like $350 billion recovery fund is all total, and they had 18,800,000 something.
But 1 million for that one aspect.
For that particular one, yes.
Thank you. So now we're going to go to the city clerk. Madam Clerk.
Hi, everybody. So a couple weeks ago, I did a training and I won this drawing for an additional training, which was super cool. And I completed that last Wednesday, the 13th, last Wednesday, the 13th. And what I did not realize when I accepted the training and filled out my little thing for it is that it started at 9 o'clock in the morning, Virginia time. So my day started really early. By the time I came in here on the lunch break that we took, I'd had about 3 cups of coffee. So I showed up bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for sure. But it was a super great training. I didn't fall asleep or anything because it was a very engaging training. So I was very happy about that. So otherwise that, I've just been working with Ellie, splitting the code, helping her out with the policies and procedures, which is going to affect our personnel code a little bit. So we've been doing that. Last Friday, she and I went and met with Risk Consulting over at Pagoda and had a terrific, last Thursday, had a terrific conversation with them. We got so much information about our benefits and about training that they offer to potentially our employees. It was probably the best hour. I got so much information. It was super terrific. I do want to give everybody a heads up that we are going to do a workshop before the next meeting regarding benefits. So expect to see that. I think we're going to start about 5:45 at the next meeting.
And that is going to be with Risk?
Yes,
And
about our benefit renewal.
Is that enough time, 45 minutes? I've never seen it been done in 45 minutes.
Okay, that's what we agreed upon during that meeting. If we need more time, then we can certainly start at 5:30 if you think that's necessary.
I think you might start at 5:30.
Okay, yeah,
because
absolutely.
Our folks need to know the terminology and they need to know questions. And that is outside of our salaries and PERS. Actually, what we pay in benefits exceeds what we pay in PERS by quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more than $900,000 a year that we spend on those just medical benefits alone. So we're really going to have to take a good hard look and know the terminology.
Yeah, and we've got some changes to talk about. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a really good conversation.
Would you please send out a reminder for May, prior to May 2nd, send out a jogger now that they understand, hey, set aside 5:30. I know that might be hard for you, Councilman Keller, to be there at 5:30, but you probably know the medical terms. You could probably brief us on it, couldn't you? Okay, thank you. Any questions for the clerk? Thank you for holding down the fort in my absence too. Thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to item 9. The clerk will introduce, I believe, Ms. Angela Keast from ADA for ongoing projects report. Angela? Hi, welcome. And you have to unmute yourself, Angela. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor Welch. And thank you, Melissa, for making sure that I had the Zoom contact information, and good to meet you all, City Council members and staff. So I wanted to share a few things, and I understand I have about 10 minutes, but I am also available. I'll leave some time for any questions. But as you know, we are very eager to be working with the City of North Pole on a project for the military facility zone, which is in the City of North Pole in the state of Alaska, to do some land development to enable some housing. And we certainly appreciate this City Council's passing of the resolution on March 7th to work with Ada. And I would like to let you know what has been accomplished since that time. So, well, Mayor Welch can probably share or has shared that earnest money was placed on a property, and a contract with a potential 90-day due diligence period. And so in that due diligence, we have commenced an environmental phase 1 and a concept design. And this is at Ada's cost. So I would like to share with you just some highlights from those 2 studies that have been performed, and then also report on some meetings that we had last Thursday when we were in Fairbanks. And unfortunately, we didn't get to meet with Mayor Welch, but we hope to when we're up again on April 27th or another time that we can agree. So the environmental phase 1 completed by Travis and Peterson, and that identified a couple issues. One is the historic known sulfolane and PFAS in the groundwater, and that's the plume from the Flint Hills refinery, and that the DEC recommends connecting to municipal water, and that was as we expected. It also identified that there are some cars that are on the east portion of the parcel, and that it's unidentified if there is potential, fluids in that area, but it was making us aware of that, so we're now aware and would be making plans to mitigate that and remove those. We also, having met with it's Eddie Packey of Travis and Peterson on Thursday, wanted to progress a follow-up of whether any foam had been used at Bradley Sky Ranch historically, either from a North Pole Fire Department response or otherwise, in case if there was a chance that might have been used. The general recommendation is that there is more of a slough between the ranch and the property that would have prevented any flow onto the property. But we want to be ahead of this and proactive. And so we are progressing some inquiry, and thank you, Mayor Welch, for sharing Mr. Heinequin, the fire department chief's information with Eddie this week.
I still owe you Bradley Brothers. I'm trying to go through Lana Hebert, who's their realtor, with Jamie and Robert, that are two of the 3 heirs. The widow of Les Bradley, her name is Susan Hurley, who, by the way, was a mayor here for the city of North Pole. She lives down on the Kenai, but I think you'll get more from the Bradley brothers than you will get from her. But I will get you that information when Lana Hebert responds back to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have a direct line to them, is what I'm trying to say.
Perfect. And what were the 2 brothers' names again? I just missed that.
There's Robert and there's James or Jamie. Jamie Bradley, the Bradley brothers, we call them.
So much.
And I could tell you, we could write a story about them, couldn't we, Jeff? Yeah, you don't want to know. All right.
So the second study that we performed with a contractor, Stantec, was to do a concept design on the property. And the property we're speaking of is this Howard property, just adjacent to the city of North Pole on Homestead. And it's 36 acres. And of that 36 acres, approximately 5 is considered wetlands. And that leaves over 30 acres of developable land without having to apply for a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers 404 permit. So that was very positive. And a concept design layout was prepared, 2 choices that are options to allow for anywhere from 135 to 165 units on the property, some portion apartments, and then a number of probably close to 28 to 34 plexes. So, and that includes a loop that would enter and exit from Homestead. And when I get that, I can share with you, Mayor Welch, the informal diagram that I have. I don't have the final report on the wetlands yet. And also the utilities portion, which is the ability to connect into the city water on the perimeter, and that a pumping unit would be needed for freeze protect, and some indication of ability to tie into the sewer on Tanana, that lift station, but also probably some level of lifting that would be required from the northwest portion of that property. But it's all viable, right? So what we're looking for is it viable? And so both of these were very positive. And again, we're wrapping up the final reports that we intend to provide to the City of North Pole. And so with that information, we actually met with the Fairbanks North Star Borough Platting Officer, George Steffen, on Thursday, as well as Community Planning, Melissa Kellner, and talked through the process. And we're aware that there's a May 16th submittal deadline for a platting board meeting on July 20th. And that is what we are aiming to submit survey information for. So we are intending to commence the next steps of doing both a boundary and topographic survey as a critical path item to progress work in parallel with the process that will take place with the City of North Pole to purchase the land.
Excuse me, Angela, did you say July 20th or June 20th?
July 20th. So it's a 10-week, if not 12-week process from application to final. However, supplemental information can be included after the original application.
Okay.
So that's what we're aiming for. If we find out new information, and there exists an application deadline each month. So we would hope for the May one, but if we were not able to accomplish the May one, we would aim for the June one.
Okay.
So I will also share that on April 13th, ADA's board met, and Director Alan Weitzner shared a presentation on the project and what had been accomplished and what is envisioned with the project to work with both the City of North Pole and Fairbanks North Star Borough in public-private partnership, to do this development and all the elements. And I have shared that with yourself, Mayor Welch.
Yes.
And the board, I just want to say, is very supportive. And so what we shared is that we would intend to come back on May 25th at our next board meeting and prepare even a more detailed outline of the plan. What was in the original resolution from January is that we would prepare a finance plan that would require approval by the board. So right now there's very preliminary funding to do the due diligence that we've already started, and enough to get this surveying and subdivision master plan design going. We need to request additional funding to move past that point. So the date that we will be working towards is to gather everything that we have that week prior, similar to you, the open meetings requirement for posting on our website and so forth. But we also hope to do, again, more meetings on April 27th when we come. And that'll be the same day, Mayor Welch, as the Housing Task Force meeting.
That's right. That's at 3:30.
Correct. So
that's also Administrative Professionals Day, and I'm probably going to take the people inside the aquarium here, the fishbowl here, to lunch that day. The staff inside the City Hall here.
That would be well deserved. And but I also would look forward to meeting Ellie in person. So I believe she was on the Zoom the last time. And then we are also hoping to speak with the military that day. We weren't able to speak with them last Thursday because of just the way that the agenda came together. But that's what I have to share, and I'm available to answer questions. I think I might have gone over my 10 minutes.
No, you didn't. You're right on time.
I have a question for you.
Councilman Jacobson, go ahead, please, sir.
Thank you. It's not really a question. It's more of a referral. But as far as the PFAS foam history, another good resource would be former Fire Chief Buddy Lane. He retired over 10 years ago, but he had 30+ year employment history with the City of North Pole Fire Department. So he would be able to recall if there was ever a plane crash in which they had to use the pumper tanker that used the foam in that location.
Thank you very much.
And following on that, Chief Jeff Kuhn, who started with us in 1991, who left me for when Chad Heineken took over. So he was with us for 30+ years.
Mr. Mayor, this is Chief Heineken. Can I add something real quick? The
Yes,
other thing I'd like to
please.
point out is the Bradley Sky Ranch is not part of the city. So the North Pole Fire Department would not be the typical responder. It would be the North Star Volunteer Fire Department.
If there'd been a crash or something, would you have responded or not?
With our ambulance, correct, but not normally with an engine.
Okay, not with engine. Okay. Does that help you, Angie?
And that does help because the North Star Volunteer Fire Department normally didn't carry those type of foams on their engines, I don't believe.
No, I'm asking Angie, does that help her? Because I know we didn't. You can never find an invoice where the city bought any. I already know that. At least from once I was an elected person, I just somehow have known because we had to look into that we had never bought any. So it wasn't something we carried, was it, Chief Heineken?
What was that question again?
Can you hear me okay, Chief? I said we had never bought any aqueous fighting foam, had we?
No, the stuff we used was purchased by the refineries.
Right, was gifted to us, but we don't have an invoice of buying it. And Chief Heineken, by the way, started with us in February of 2006. Just to give you an idea. And Chief Kuhn, who's now in Fairbanks, he started with us in, like I say, 1991. Quite 31 years ago or so.
That's all very helpful. I think that further indicates to the unlikeliness of foam in the soils. And it could be that there's a desire to do some soils testing as an additional layer of confidence building. But I think the more we can gain from this line of researching the history, the less likely that we need that information. And that's advantageous. But want to do whatever the city needs to be able to fulfill the due diligence so that this city council can proceed with an ordinance to complete the purchase and transfer of this land to Ada for our joint project.
So I want to explain something so you'll know that I'm doing my due diligence as well. A couple of years ago, I was contacted by Lena Hebert to tell me that the Bradley brothers wished to sell the Bradley Sky Ranch. Jeff Jacobson, Councilman Jacobson, was a mayor when he appointed me in 2003 to look at the Bradley Sky Ranch. If the feds were trying to do what they were with the FAA, we had the opportunity to bring on the Bradley Sky Ranch. There was a lot of pieces of that puzzle, but the FAA was going to pay 93.5 cents of every dollar. The city 1.5 cents, and the state of Alaska would have had a nickel into it. But because that's one of those areas that I learned when I went to Embry-Riddle was airport master planning, and that was on the North Alaska Aviation Users Group. I think that's why Jeff Jacobson, you can correct me, I think that's why you asked me to be on that. And it didn't come to pass. We don't need to go through that. But I will tell you that now we turn around 20-something years later, almost 20 years later, 17 years later, and the Bradley brothers are coming to me again. Do we ever want to buy the Bradley Sky Ranch? So now I send them my due diligence thing that I have to do. And I said, well, your environmentals on your airport are stale. They're from 2011. They're 10 years old. They're from 2011, and it doesn't address PFAS, PFOA. So I will send you, as well as to this council, four things that I brought down. Some are charts, some are narratives, some are documents, some have to do with manipulation of what's a tolerable level of PFAS, PFOA that was changed from the governor's office in less than 2 years ago to be an acceptable level. So I'm going to share that, and I'll say, like Fox News, I'll report, you decide, but so will our council. I want them to know what I dug up. Or as my attorney will tell you, I sat through our lawsuit that I won't go into discussion with, but I did sit through it when I was a new mayor to watch Alaska DEC joined with Flint Hills versus Williams Alaska Petroleum that we call WAPI. So I did sit through that. I went not just through the opening and closing, but I went through the testimony in the middle. And then last year, the day before I met y'all for the first time on December 15th, I was in the Alaska Supreme Court in Anchorage in the Boney building to listen to the appeal that WAPI put up. And so I know more about it, okay? And as our attorney will tell you, I don't hardly forget anything. So that was where my memory was strong, and I went back and found the documentation that comes from various sources, including some of the zone maps. Kimberly Lake, you know where Kimberly Lake is at? So from Kimberly Lake right up through the Howard property all the way to the Bradley Sky Ranch. So I will share that with you, and I will not tell you what I think about it. I'll let you look at it first. But when I share it with you, and I already kind of think I told Alan Weissner, he was at that big infrastructure meeting. So he did meet me there at the Denina Center and told him I was going to share it, but I'm just waiting, and now's the time for me to discuss it. I'm not going into depth. I'm just going to share it with you, okay? And then the council will have it for the future for them to decide about that piece of land, all right?
Thank you very much.
Any questions for Angela? Any questions at this juncture? Thank you for what you gave us tonight. Appreciate your attention to detail and sharing what you guys are doing in your diligence area.
Thank
And
you. If it's acceptable, I will I'll leave the Zoom after this.
you sure may. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It is highly possible. We're going to continue on ongoing projects. This one's going to be brief. The ongoing thing with the chambers is like this. According to Alaska Universal Productions, Jonathan Huff, that owns that company, June 3rd, Friday the 3rd, is the shipping date of all the equipment that comes to us for that chambers for our audiovisual system, our state-of-the-art audiovisual system. So June 3rd, your guess is as good as mine when it gets here, and your guess is as good as mine how long it's going to take Alaska Universal Productions to put all that up. In the meantime, I talked with Travis from Planbeck Flooring. So he'll be getting a check to send off to Dalton, Georgia to have the carpet shipped here. I'm going to try to shoot that they'll come in and put the carpet in what I call the fishbowl, which is the administrative area around the Memorial Day weekend, like starting Friday the 27th and having it all put in by the 30th. And I'm going to have to hire some strong backs from probably our public works summer hires to help move the furniture and all back and forth. So that's that. And then I'm going to have public works paint the chamber itself. And then once our offices are recarpeted, because this carpet's more than 20 years old now, it's worn out, then the chamber will be done last. And I don't think I'm going to have them take up the help me guys. I don't think I'll have them take the dais up where all of our stations are. Nobody's going to see where our feet are, that it's on old carpet, because that carpet's not worn down, but they'll do the rest of it. So I'm hoping that's how that'll go. So maybe somewhere we'll reopen the chambers. Okay, but we will discuss about somewhere in May when we're going to reopen City Hall to not have the doors locked. I don't know if you want to talk about it tonight. If not, we'll do it and we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting. We'll put that on the May 2nd agenda, Madam Clerk, okay? About when we're going to open the chamber, not the chambers, the City Hall to people not having to have an appointment, but they'll just come in from 8 to 5. Is that okay, Madam Clerk? Thank you. All right. So that leads us to item 10. I see someone sitting out there, citizens' comments. And there I see Scott McCrae from Fairbanks. Hello, Scott. Good to see you.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor Welch. How are you doing this evening?
I'm fine, sir.
Great. Audio's working okay?
Yeah, you sound great. Sound robust.
All right. Yeah, wonderful. So Scott McCrae, President and CEO of Explore Fairbanks, wanted to use this opportunity tonight to give you an update on what's happening in the regional tourism industry. A hearty congratulations to Mr. Jacobson for rejoining the North Pole City Council. Back in the day when I worked at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, then Mayor Jacobson and I worked together on some projects to try to bring the University of Alaska Fairbanks off the hill and down into the city of North Pole. So it's good to see you on board. I grew a beard in 2022, but as I look at Council Member Skips and especially Council Member Claus, I still have some work to do in the growth department. I don't know if my wife will allow me to do much more than this, but I've got some good competition here in the beard department. But
I shaved today.
well, I'm not here to talk about hair growth. I want to again give an update on what's happening within the visitor industry. First of all, our huge thank you to the council and the BedTax committee for your support of your your reallocation of the BedTax funds towards our efforts here to Explore Fairbanks. We put them to good use for the entire borough, including the city of North Pole. So kind of doing a quick recap of 2021, for the visitor industry, as we went into 2021, it was just a year of we had no idea what was going to happen for the year. After 2020, when we had such a devastating year with the pandemic, there were just so many unknowns with how are we going to do going to 2021. And we surpassed expectations. We had a really good year for 2021, all things considered. When you work in the fact that we had no cross Gulf Alaska cruise ship land tour passengers coming to interior Alaska, we had no highway traffic coming across the border for the most part. We had no international visitors coming over. But when all is said and done, we did really well. So when we look at how do we measure how we did as an industry, we go back to BedTax. That's our best measurement there. So borough-wide, including the city of North Pole, city of Fairbanks, Fairbanks North Star Borough, the collection through the governments, not to us, Explore Fairbanks, was a little over 5.2 million. Now, in comparison to previous years, we definitely exceeded 2020. 2020 was a horrible year. We try not to talk about that. We did not do as well as 2017 through 2019, but we did better than we did 2016 going back. So it was a good year. And in fact, we had record borough-wide BedTax collections for the months of April, November, and December.
Wow.
And of course, North Pole, city of North Pole, the entire year, it was record collections. I mean, every single month, as you know, was better than any previous year. So we're pretty thankful for that. I mean, 2021 worked much better than we thought. Going into winter season for 2022, we're still waiting figures. We do know that for January and February of 2022, we had record BedTax collections for the Fairbanks North Star Borough. We haven't seen it yet for a city of North Pole, the city of Fairbanks. We know that during the month of March, for visitors trying to come here to Fairbanks, if you were looking at weekends during the month of March, especially during spring break, trying to find a hotel in Fairbanks or North Pole, there was no room at the inn. It was just, places were full. And if you could find room at the inn, you couldn't find a rental car to drive to the inn because there was a dramatic rental car shortage. Now, a lot of what we saw, because of that, it was the visitor industry made up a big portion of that, but because of the military exercises that transpired during March, that also added a lot to it as well. So it was good. We're looking forward to seeing what those figures are in terms of airport arrivals and departures for the first quarter here for the winter. But we've had a very robust winter, and as we call it, the Aurora season has just done phenomenally well. And that's all domestic market. I mean, as probably a lot of you know, that a lot of how we've done so well over previous years when it comes to the Aurora season, to the winter season, has been with international markets, especially with Asian markets, Japan, mainland China. Those markets pretty much don't exist for us anymore as a destination. They'll come back eventually. It's going to take some time. So this is all domestic travel. And a lot of people have said, well, no, I've seen people from Japan or people from China around here. It's like, no, that's Asian Americans from the West Coast who have been coming here. So we did pretty well. We hosted back in late February, we hosted our first major conference that we've hosted in the last 2 years. And that's the Society of American Travel Writers Western Chapter Conference. We brought about 45, 46 or so travel writers, very highly qualified travel writers from the Western half of the United States, came here to interior Alaska for about a week and had a chance to explore around our region. We took them to North Pole for half a day. We have, in fact, the only group photo we have of them was outside the Santa Claus house. They went to the Hotel North Pole and had an amazing time. And we're pretty excited to see the media coverage that's come about as their time here in interior Alaska. So far, it's been phenomenal. And we've seen some stories coming out, and it's been great. So now we're looking at the summer season. So it's coming around the corner. I don't know, I'm looking out my window here. I got a lot of snow in my yard still. So it's kind of hard to imagine summer, but it will be here. And this has, by all of our predictions, we have the potential for a record summer season for interior Alaska and the rest of the state. So we're going to start seeing those cross Gulf Alaska cruise land tours coming back again. Holland America, Princess, they're going to be pulling up with their motor coaches in front of the Santa Claus house coming into Fairbanks. Right now, the capacity numbers for cruise is at a record number, but in terms of taking capacity to actual bookings, it's still kind of questionable. The early season bookings are pretty low, but as we get into the August and September months, they tend to grow up a bit. I think a lot of that has to do with we're seeing more people coming in the later summer months because there's a realization that that's when you can start seeing the Northern Lights. Of course, that's our bread and butter here with the industry, being an Aurora destination. So we welcome back the cruise ship passengers and those motor coaches. You might have seen them driving around the area doing the trainings for the drivers. So that's exciting there. We'll start seeing international visitors coming back. So in about a month and a half or so, Condor is going to have their service from Frankfurt to Fairbanks coming back, weekly service there to bring in the German-speaking Europe market, which is pretty big for us. Highway traffic, now that the Canadian border restrictions have been lifted, we'll start seeing the RVs coming through. Some concern with energy costs. Gas prices being what they are, it takes a lot of money to fill up an RV, especially if you're making the trip from somewhere in the Midwest through Alaska. So we're hoping that situation gets resolved because highway traffic typically makes up about 10% of our visitors during the summer time frame. In terms of airlift, last summer we were so excited because we had like record capacity for airlift. I wish I could tell you today that all those airlines, all those routes were coming back to Fairbanks this summer. Sadly, they're not. So here's the quick snapshot of what we're seeing for this summer. So Delta will be coming back with daily service from Minneapolis. United will United Airlines will be coming back with daily service from Chicago. Alaska Airlines will have 5 daily flights from Seattle, and I believe about 8 daily flights from Anchorage. And Delta will have 2 daily flights from Seattle. I mentioned Condor as well, and pretty big news in the airline industry today. If you saw the news in regards to the mask mandate, there was a federal judge challenged the CDC requirement on the mask mandate on airlines. A lot of airlines, including Alaska Airlines, have now said you no longer have to have a mask to travel on our airline. And the Fairbanks International Airport has lifted their mask requirements. So if you're traveling anywhere and you're trying to scramble to find a mask at the last second, you don't have to worry about it right now. It might change. We shall see. So we feel, looking ahead to this summer, we have the potential. So all those different markets that didn't exist for the last 2 years are coming back. We also have the independent market that really drove us last year. I mean, those numbers I gave you before, that was just independent domestic travelers. Those should continue to grow going into this year too. But as optimistic as we are, we have some challenges. We have, Mayor Welch, you mentioned at the meeting down in Anchorage about the workforce development issue. That's a huge one for our industry.
Yes.
We still have hotels, we have restaurants, we have tour companies that are still trying to find employees to be able to meet the surge that we're expected to see with visitation. And that's good.
Yeah, one of the big discussions there was about these, they call them D2 visas, about the people from, Eastern European.
Yeah, J1. It's the J1 student visa.
J1
Yeah.
visa program. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's big hot topic there in that workforce development.
Yeah, that's a big one for us. Especially going down to Denali. A lot of the employees that hotels in Denali, restaurants in Denali have are J1 students coming from Eastern European. And
well, that's who I was sitting with, Clay Walker, the borough mayor from Denali. So yeah, it's big. That's how they fund. That's how they fund their whole community, is based on bed tax.
Yeah. Well, definitely the international, the strife that we're seeing, overseas is causing a lot of problems as well. So we're concerned about employees. We're concerned about, supply chain shortages. So, last summer, a big problem we had was rental car shortage. And that seems to be better for this summer, but not as better as we would like. So the new term is Carmageddon. It's people not being able to find rental cars. So the local U-Haul company here in Fairbanks, for example, they're renting U-Hauls out to visitors who are coming here to Fairbanks. So if you see U-Haul trucks driving around North Pole, it's not people who are moving necessarily. It might be people who are just trying to get from point A to point B. So
I've actually seen people rent the trucks and make their motel room in the truck. So they have a way to get around and they have a place to sleep. I don't know if I'd want to do that, but people do.
No. So, yeah. I would say if any of you here on this Zoom meeting today, if you have an extra car that's in good shape, there's a service called Turo.
Turo, that's right.
Yeah. You can rent your car out. It's like Airbnb for vehicles. And I have colleagues last summer who purchased a used car, and within the course of a month, they were able to pay for it just by renting out for Turo. So I call it pandeconomics. There's still challenges that we have right now, as much as we want to be past all this, that are going to impact not just the visitor industry, but all of us. All industries are being affected there. But in terms of the interest of people coming to North Pole, coming to Fairbanks, coming to Alaska, it's just as strong now as it was more than ever. And what we benefit from in our region right now is, I feel, I guess, bad for some of my colleagues within Southeast Alaska that are they're focused on May to September. They're focused on the cruise ships. We've done a great job here, and my predecessor, Deb Hickok, and others, I'm just coming off the bench and able to move it forward. We've established ourselves as a year-round destination. So as other places in Alaska, it's a ghost town during the months of February and March. We're busier than ever. So, I think we're all pretty fortunate and blessed to live somewhere where we have not just the beauty of the Northern Lights and a winter landscape, but amazing businesses such as the Santa Claus House, such as all the different companies that exist in North Pole and Fairbanks to make us a vibrant tourism industry. And we help promote that through your generous reinvestment of your bed tax dollars there from the city of North Pole. So that's my little quick update there. It was great listening in to the rest of the meeting here. A lot of great things happening out there in my former town of North Pole, and happy to answer any questions.
Let me ask you some questions first.
Yes, sir.
I'll get to the council here in a minute. First off, now that you're telling us that the boundaries and all are opening again, do you know about these travel guides, things like, people are hounding me now to start advertising again. Do you know about maybe we could talk about it later offline, but I'm just prompting you, to get with me and try to guide me through some of these travel guidebooks where I can get the biggest bang for the buck. Are you able to do that or not?
Well, Mayor, the Bible of all travel guides, of course, for traveling to Alaska is, of course, the milepost.
Yes.
Yeah. So anytime you have a presence in the milepost, that's always a good one there too. But if you want to, I can talk to them. I got people, our advertising director who's pretty knowledgeable about what are the best ones there to be involved in. I'm happy to talk with you offline to give you which ones are the best ones.
Okay. Another thing I might ask,
milepost.
Yeah, one thing I might ask you about is collaborating with me, especially if I get an economic development authority going down here. I'd like to put another hotel in the south end of our city, and I'd like it to be something like an extended stay version, because
Sure.
I know they don't have enough temporary lodging facility at Eielson, especially when they have people checking in, people checking out, or they have family or guests or members. It's better to have an extended stay thing than it is just to have a hotel room for a day or two.
Yeah.
But I would think the tax that we would get from that would be quite something. And some of the land that I've helped bring in, like Three Bears down there on the south end, they don't need all 25 acres. And so they're looking at how they can have other people using some of that land, and they'd be like the anchor and the others would be the tenant. But I would think some of the hotel chains, and we're not talking about the large ones, we're talking about extended stays and things like that, might want to go on their own piece of land, which there are two pieces down there off of Busby that are available that I could look at. And I would think that would be a win-win-win for everybody. People say, well, what's that going to do to Hotel North Pole? Hotel North Pole doesn't have the capacity, especially when all these foreign duty officers come here for red flags and stuff.
No,
So
they don't. Yeah.
we'll all float, all rising tides, everybody will float with it.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. So I might
Yeah, and
want
it's-
to, I might want to include your guys, help me with that too.
Yeah, sure. And by the way, I'm so excited to hear that Three Bears might come to North Pole because
they will come here.
That's great. We make trips to Healy just to go there because it's a great.
It was not by happenstance. My wife and I visited with them on August 27th to make a proposal, and their CEO and the rest of their team met with us on December the 15th. And so I said, well, you guys do your due diligence and we'll keep our mouth pretty much quiet, which is what we did. And now you see they're actually going to come here. And I'll tell you, just so that you'll know, their proposal is approximately 67,000 square feet, which is about 30,000 square feet more than Healy. That's huge. Oh yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. In regards to, hotel prop, that's a big thing we're having here in Fairbanks is because of the housing shortage, with the different exercises coming in, military looking towards local hotel properties for housing. The challenge we have here in Fairbanks is, and we're trying to navigate the red tape to circumvent this, is the governmental per diem rates for accommodations here in Fairbanks and North Pole are the lowest in the state.
Yes.
dramatically low. So wintertime rates are $79. Summer seasonal rates are about $140. Meanwhile, down in Anchorage, their year-round rate is $229. And we have hotel properties that with the return to visitation in the wintertime, they could be charged, market value. It's three times that in summer. So we're trying to find a way, and it's all set, the governmental per diem rate for accommodations, it's set through the Department of Defense. So I've been working with Senator Murkowski's office, Senator Sullivan's office, the Chamber Military Affairs Committee to find a way. We've got to be able to raise those rates up.
And I had to do the same thing in my federal position that I was in the National Association of Air Traffic Specialists. And a lot of people don't know, we have traveling air traffic controllers at Kotzebue, Barrow, Dead Horse, Nome, McGrath, Northway, all these places, right? And the per diem rates are only as good as who will take the time to fill out the paperwork in a survey.
Mm-hmm.
And then that survey goes to the Pentagon, DOD, like you say, and then they come out and set them. And they're the same people who set the basic allowance for housing for what soldiers and airmen and all get for their housing allowance too. And so we find ourselves traditionally 20% or more under what Anchorage gets.
Oh yeah.
That's what we're finding. So I know how that piece of the pie is put together. So I don't mind working with you on that, but it's only as good as the people who take the time and do the surveys. And they have no other way, no other mode of going out and doing it. So that's what they base it on. So.
Yeah. I'll be happy to supply, Mayor, you and the council if you want. I did a white paper on it last year, kind of showing the difference and some of the concerns from hoteliers that really outlines the problem well. So I'll share that with you tomorrow.
Okay, very fine, sir. Anyone have any questions for Scott for giving us a good report here? Mrs. Welch, thank you for being so patient.
Thank you. Nice to hear from you again, Scott. I was wondering about when I was working for Princess many years ago, we had quite a few groups of people that are coming in from overseas, namely travel agents and heads of travel agencies and stuff like that. Have we seen any pickup on that side of it? I had a lot of fun. I had a group of German-speaking travel agents for about two and a half days. I got to take them everywhere, and it was fun to do that. So.
Yeah, in terms of international visitation, the return that we're going to see, I think coming this summer will be indeed from German-speaking Europe, from the European UK market. So again, we got Condor back. That's a very promising sign that we have that market coming back to us. We've had Explore Fairbanks. We've had a contractor over in Germany for many years now. And going in 2020, when we were making, pretty significant budget cuts, we kept our contractor on board just to keep kind of Fairbanks in the mind of the German market, because we knew that would be probably the first one to come back. So in fact, we even hosted this back in early March. We hosted a group of tour operators from Europe that came over here and went to Fairbanks, went to North Pole. So that market's going to come back gradually this year. The Asian market, especially in regards to China, boy, that one's questionable for a number of reasons right now. But I think that international, especially the European market, we'll start seeing that coming again this summer. Australia, New Zealand, that's always been one of our number one markets as well. So they're starting to reopen. So we're kind of contingent upon what's happening within the restrictions of that country coming back. So internationals would take a couple of years still to rebound to where it was in 2019.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
Anyone else for Scott? Scott, thanks for giving us a report tonight. And
You're welcome, Mayor, and thanks to all of you.
I'll be in touch with you. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
All right. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. I think that takes care of we don't have old business. We already consented on new business. We have nothing to discuss then under new business. We consented on all those things. So that takes us to council comments. Who's first, Madam Clerk? And I'll keep everyone in mind, it's 8:40 already tonight.
Mr. Jacobson?
Thank you. Congratulations again to Kyle Lambries for being the High School Student of the Month. I'm sad that I'll be traveling the week of May 13th and I'll miss out on the police memorial and also the F-35 ceremony out at Eielson Air Force Base, but I have those already pre-committed. I wish the city lots of success in hiring a new director of city services. It's been tough, I'm sure, on the utility department and public works not to have a director in place this last month. So hopefully you'll be successful in landing a really good director. And I'm also, again, I appreciate the funds that the city spent to remove the snow. It's really made a difference. It's nice driving on dry pavement here in North Pole. There are parts of the borough that, you know, have a lot of ice and slush on their streets, and we don't. So that was a very good investment here in North Pole. And that's my comments for tonight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Keller?
Kind of going off with Councilman Jacobson with the snow removal. I'm very appreciative that we were able to get that done and see that progress in even in my neighborhood. I wasn't quite sure they were going to get to mine, but they did. So also appreciation for cooperation from the citizens. I haven't personally heard any big, huge gripes and complaints. Everything on social media that I saw was, hey, if you have any issues, call the number, and they had the supervisor's number, but they're rarely available. And it was pretty good feedback that HC responded very quickly. So very, very happy with that, with blocked driveways and stuff like that. I am excited to actually attend the F-35 commencement or party next month. I actually blocked my schedule to go to that. I'm excited for the growth that's coming to the area. I just hope that we can come together as a community and make it a concerted effort together. And so it's just not chaos, but we can make sense of what can not just sustain now, but also in the future. So with that, I'm enjoying this more sunshine and the more warmth that we're getting, and can't wait for some more grass.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Welch?
Well, just keep up the good work out there with the keeping off of sliding off of the roads here. I chose to not walk to church this Sunday here. I have 3/10 of a mile from my front door because the back route is only a 1/10 of a mile, but there's still 6 to 8 feet of snow piled in places, so I chose not to do that. But it's just so slippery out there. So I just want everybody to be aware. It is a short-term thing. The sun is out, so please do not hurt yourselves. It's especially with summer coming up. You want to be able to be out and get around and stuff like that. So please be safe. And just on a side note here, happy birthday to my young puppy here who turns 1 year old today. So Hannah Lisa is officially now a yearling. So that's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Skips?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cromer?
I just wanted to wish everybody a happy belated Easter. I got to take my daughter out for her first Easter egg hunt at Two Rivers Restaurant, or whatever's left of it. I still have a huge puddle in front of my house, but they did remove a lot of snow. But I wish everybody stay safe out there and enjoy the warm weather that's about to come.
Thank you. Mr. Claus?
It's been nice being able to walk around on mostly dry pavement. So I've seen a lot of other people getting out and about, walking around as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you very much. Well, I did enjoy the time I was down in Anchorage, because when you put us at the tables, a lot of us mayors have pretty much the same generic concerns. and we're all trying to find a way to get our piece of the pie and promote our cities and make sure that we're doing the best we can. And I enjoyed being down there with Brent Sheets and meeting some other folks down there and walking. I got a lot of walking in. The streets were very dry down there and the weather was very pleasant. The scenery coming and going was beautiful all the way on the parks. I really enjoyed it. Now my sacroiliac joints didn't like it, but that's another thing. I do want to say that it's always something to be out of town and try to keep the staff, keep me advised of what's going on. I will say that in May, we probably don't need a borough rep in May because I think all of May is going to be towards their finance committee meetings. But I think you're going to need one in June. When I go down to have my surgery in Wasilla, I think my wife will be with me. So somewhere in June, you might just need someone. So I'll have the clerk, when we confirm that, I'll have the clerk go out and send someone. Someone's going to have to volunteer to be the borough rep, at least for one meeting, if not two. I'm not sure if I'm going to be ambulatory in June to travel to the wonderful capital of DC, but I do have it set up to do so with our congressional delegation, not with congressmen though, with our two senators. So, but I may push that to July. I'm not sure yet. Depends on what the doctors tell me about whether I can go or not. So there are other things in that aren't worth talking about till after they come up. So I do know that I enjoyed having Good Friday off. That's always a very holy day to me. And that's a day that from my upbringing as a child, I stay home and stay quiet. So with that, enough said tonight. God bless everyone. Appreciate it. Take care. We'll see you next time on May 2nd, but I will send you out what I promised you. Probably send it out tomorrow morning. The diligence I did on that Jack Howard property. So you take a good look at it. And if you have questions, let me know. God bless everybody. Good night. And
Good
so
night.
now we go to item 14, a call for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
We had enough people jumping in on that. So let's call it adjourned at 8:48. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
Bye.